So continuing on the theme of algebra, in this video we'll be looking at writing expressions from words. Now, algebra is a language of mathematics that is used to express a calculation of an unknown or changing values. It is also used to represent a set of mathematical instructions of an input to its output. Now, if that has completely utterly confused you, then do not worry. Basically, if you remember in your early maths days when you had questions where you had an input in terms of function machines and you had a set of instructions, so for example times 3 and maybe plus 2, and you had an output, then basically what this is saying is algebra works in a very similar way. So here you have an input, you have a set of mathematical instructions, and you have an output. Now, rather than drawing a function machine, we can use algebra to represent a very similar model. Now, when a number is unknown, it is often represented with a letter. Now, the choice of this letter can sometimes be the first letter of what it stands for. So, for example, if something represents cost, it might be represented by the letter C. If it represents minutes, it might be represented by the length of M. If it represents distance, it might be represented by the letter D, etc. However, it is common that when we don't know the value of something, or we are thinking of a number that we're just randomly thinking, we tend to use the letter X, X being more of a mystery number. So before we continue, let's just go over some key algebraic words. Now, an expression is an algebraic term used to describe a calculation whereby a number can change in its calculation, and therefore so can its answer. Now, because of this, it is common that an expression has one or more letters and no equal sign. So an example of an expression is something that has at least one letter, and it has no equal sign. So for example, what I've written on the screen is a plus 3, and that represents an expression. Why? Because it's got one letter and it's got no equal sign. Now, a can be absolutely any number. I'm just thinking of a number and I'm going to add 3 to it. So, and that's what this whole form of algebra actually is. Because I don't know what the value of a is, this is why it's an expression. If it was anything else, then a would have a set value. So before we continue, let's just quickly go through some of the rules of algebra. Now, the first rule of algebra is that we tend not to use the multiplication symbol simply because it resembles the letter X. So instead, if a letter is being multiplied by a number or other letters, we write them next to each other. So an example of this would be, so e.g., if I wanted to write 3 times t, then I'd represent that as 3t. If I wanted to write a times b, then that would be represented by ab. And if I had an expression of 2ab, then what does that mean? Well, it means 2 times a times b. Now, it's important that you're able to go from one to the other, but in terms of writing proper algebra, then that would be where we don't use the multiplication symbol. So if you see either a letter attached to another letter or a letter with a number and there's no mathematical symbol in between them, then it's fair to say that those two things are being multiplied. Now, the second rule is that when a number is being multiplied by a letter, the number always goes first. So imagine you have got, let's say, a couple of pens in your hand. You would say that you've got 2 pens or 3 pens or 5 pens in your hand. So the quantity always comes first before the actual object, or in this case a letter. So here, if I wanted to do t times 4, then it wouldn't be t4. Instead, it would be 4t. So imagine you've got 3 buses, the 3 comes first. And likewise, if we were multiplying letters with letters, then we tend to write the letters in alphabetical order. So if I had b times, let's say a times c, then correctly that would be written as a, b, c. And the final rule of algebra is that we don't use the division symbol. Again, one of the main reasons why we don't use the division symbol is because it can look like a plus sign. So to try and avoid any confusion, whether it be poor photocopying or poor handwriting, instead what we do is when we're wanting to represent a division, we write it as a fraction. So an example of this would be that if I wanted to do, let's say, a divided by 4, I would write this as a over 4. So the first thing that gets mentioned goes on the top of the fraction, and whatever gets mentioned after the division symbol goes below. So here, if I had, let's say, t divided by s, then that would be t over s, etc. So now let's have a look at some keywords and expressions. Now again, this worksheet is taken from Consume, so in terms of copyright issues, I am disclosing that this is not my own worksheet. So what we're going to do here is we're going to translate the words into algebraic expressions. Now, if you wanted to have a go at these questions, I strongly recommend that you pause the video, have a go at them, or maybe watch me go through, let's say 3 or 4, and then have a go at the others and then see if you've got them correct. But I am going to go through the answers in now. Right, so of course this first one we've got x plus 6, x add 6 I should say, so it's just going to be x plus 6. Here we've got 9 plus y, and that is just going to be like so. Now the key thing to remember is look out for there's different words that mean the same thing. So plus, add are all the same. So it's just a case of just recognizing that there are more than a couple of ways of representing the same thing. So here I've got k added to 7, so that's going to be k plus 7. 2 added to m is 2 plus m. G add h is g plus h. S plus t is just s plus t. And 5 add x is 5 plus x. Now moving on to the next one, we've got x take away 5, just x 5. J minus 3. 4 take away f. 9 minus g. W take away v. And v take away w. And h minus 2b. So again, moving on to section B. Again, if you want to pause the video, have a go at these questions yourself, by all means please do. And let's go through the answers. So 3 lots of x is basically 3 times x. But we don't use the multiplication symbol, so what we do instead is we join the two things together. 2 lots of b is the same as 2 times b, which is just 2b. 5 multiplied by d is just going to be 5d. 7 times y is 7y, and again remembering that the number always comes first. 9 lots of g is 9g. K multiplied by 8, so again that's going to be k times 8, but the number always comes first, so it's going to be 8k. And then j lots of 4, so that's j times 4, but again the number always comes first, so it's 4j. For the next one, e lots of g, that's going to be eg. R times S is RS. K multiplied by P is KP. 20 lots of Q is going to be 20Q. 3 times N times M, so that's going to be 3 times M times N, which equals 3MN. A multiplied by A is just, now instead of writing A, which is basically what we're trying to do, that when a number has been multiplied by itself, this is going to be a squared. So h times h is simply going to be not hh, which is what a lot of students tend to write, which is technically right, but not mathematically written correctly. That's going to be h squared. So the power tells you how many times of the letter that you can see that's being multiplied by itself. Now moving on to section C, this is where we're doing quite a few things. So 2 lots of v add 3. So here what we're going to do is do the 2 lots of v first, which is 2v plus 3. So this is going to be 2v plus 3. 9 times d, which is 9d, plus 8. So again with these it's like 2 steps. So I've got to do w lots of 7, so that's 7w minus 1. U lots of 2, so that's going to be 2u minus 12. 2 multiplied by x, that's going to be 2x, and then take away 6. 4 times m, which is 4m minus 13. 80 lots of g, so that's going to be 80g plus 8. Minus 1 plus c, so that's minus 1 plus c. Moving on to the next one. 11 add 5 lots of q, sorry, so that's going to be 11 plus 5q. 1 take away 6 times h, that's 1 take away 6h. 10 minus 4 multiplied by z. J lots of k, so that's going to be jk minus 3. H times g, so that's going to be hg, or gh I should write, because we need to make sure it's in alphabetical order. So gh add 15. Then q lots of p, so that's going to be pq minus t. A times b add a, so that's going to be ab plus a. And then finally w multiplied by q, by x rather, so wx, and take away from w. There is my final answer. Now again, lastly, moving on to section D. Again, if you want to have a go at these questions yourself, pause the video and unpause when you finish, but I'm just going to go through the answers of these. Now h shared by 2, well, shared is just another word for divide, and again, so that's going to be h divided by 2, but again, looking at the third rule of algebra is we don't use division symbol, instead we use fractions. J divided by 4 is going to be j over 4. 5 shared by x is going to be 5 over x. 7 divided by y is 7 over y. 18 divided by u is 18 over u. G divided by h, so g divided by h, and t shared by s is going to be t over s. Again, apologies if I'm going all over the place, I'm just got to make sure that the fractions are written carefully. Now, if you were to write these questions as, let's say, t over s, that'd be absolutely fine. Again, it's just presentation is all. So 5 lots of z divided by 2. Well, 5 lots of z is 5z, and it's divided by 2, so it's over 2. 3 multiplied by x, which is 3x, and then divided by 4. H plus 2, so that's h plus 2, and that's all divided by 5. And here we've got 3 minus k, so 3 minus k, and that's being divided by 10. Then h squared, then divided by r, well, h squared is that, divided by r, there is my answer. Now, we'll include a blank version of this worksheet in the description below, along with another worksheet for you to practice everything that you've learned in this video.